Hi, and welcome to the Swedish Microsoft Information Protection User Group. The topic of today will be the AIP scanner, or maybe the MIP scanner. And today we welcome Denis Mizetski, who is a Principal Program Manager in Israel and also the AIP scanner feature owner from Microsoft. So, Denis, what are we going to cover today?
Talk a bit about what can you get from implementation of Scanner, what's the recommended methodology, and we have some changes in the methodology that we recommend to follow starting from September, because we added some additional new steps on making the deployment easier. I will talk about what's new, what's there now, what's in the previews, and what's coming next in H1 calendar year 21. And I will talk about DLP preview. It's currently in private preview. Hopefully I will also be able to demo, but I saw that there are some issues with the dog food environment, and maybe I will just use screenshots. Then I assume that everybody here knows what's Microsoft Information Protection and what it provides. Then I don't think that we need to deep dive into it, but the main thing that MIP brought when we transitioned from AIP to MIP is using as much as possible unified approach in classification and labeling protection, having the same admin experience, having the same detection mechanisms, either it's on the endpoints and for data at rest. And MIP has a pretty good coverage across Microsoft Suite, Office clients, support natively, labeling, protection, and we're bringing more and more from AIP add-in capabilities into Office platform. SharePoint invested a lot in bringing labels and extending them to container level. Power BI shipped lots of new stuff. If somebody is into Power BI, then there are a few links at the end of the session for general resources. Then we're going to announce the rich client support in Power BI for labeling. Then you will be able to label and protect your Power BI files. Exchange ship DIT and DAR and labeling in all their pipelines. There is a great coverage for labeling in third parties via our MCAS solution. And this session we're going to talk about on-prem. And before we're deep diving into on-prem, I would like us to ask ourselves why we are doing this. We're all rushing into cloud. This is the future. This is where we want you to be. And we would love to get rid of on-prem, all of us, including me. Then at the beginning of this year, we conducted a research in the US, which is obviously the easiest market for cloud adoption. And we found these numbers. I think that the number in the middle, the 44%, was the most convincing one. Customers told us that even in 5 years from now, almost half of our customers will have a substantial amount of important data on-prem, which means on-prem is here to stay. For sure, a number of customers that work just offline or just on-prem will be minimal, but most of enterprise customers will have an on-prem footprint even 5 years from now. And when we are going to bigger customers, it's becoming more and more, the numbers are going higher. Then this was the main reason why we decided that we need to invest more in AIP Scanner at the beginning of this year. And these were the main three use cases where customers were thinking about implementation of AIP Scanner and how to use it. Almost 100% of customers use Scanner for data discovery. Either it's the first phase for next phases, or it's just on its own. Customers use AIP Scanner to go scan their information, their data on-prem, and find what's sensitive there, and decide based on this what they should do. The next step, which is adopted by about 30 to 40% of existing customers, is labeling protection. And this is mainly coming through different regulatory or business policy that require everything to be labeled, or you need to take care of legacy data. And there are a few use cases when even if you already labeled all your data, there are systems that create files and dump them on file shares. And most of the systems are not integrated with MIP SDK, then you still create important reports that are not labeled, and Scanner closes this gap for them. And the third one is cloud migrations. Then this one is actually a bit different scenario than the first two ones. And this is because while for first and the second use case, you will usually run Scanner in a continuous way, some scheduler that Scanner will run and scan all your repositories all the time. When you use Scanner for cloud migrations, it's usually on-demand manually scan. You initiate a scan, you see what's there, you tweak your policy, you scan it again until you get what you need to get. And the main outcome of this scenario is customers decide what they can migrate, what they cannot migrate, and what they need to do before they can migrate. For example, they need to label or encrypt some data before it can go to the cloud. And this is another interesting use case, which is more tactical from a scanner perspective, because we don't see these customers running scanners for forever. But it's very important unblocker scenario for customers that want to go to cloud. And this is the change in the methodology that we recommend to follow starting from last Ignite. The first step will be mapping of your network. One of things that we heard from customers consistently that they didn't know where to start. We told them go and inspect and run discovery of your files, and customers told us we either don't know where we need where we have our files, what are the file shares, or some very big customers, and actually this even came from MSIT, from our own IT that uses Scanner, that they told us we have tens of thousands of file shares. We cannot just go and scan everything. We need you to help us to understand what should be prioritized. Then this first step, or even we'll call it step 0, for mapping your network, this is what we shipped in September. You can now install a new service in Scanner that is named Network Discovery and point it to your IP ranges, IP networks. And it will go and find all file shares, report you on what was found there, and if these file shares are publicly accessible, or let's say widely accessible, for example, open to everyone or to authenticate users, and then you will be able to prioritize and add these discovered shares to your content scan, which will be the second step for your Scanner implementation, is going to and inspecting the content and discovery of sensitive information inside your files. Then here we also work on few modifications. We got a lot of feedback from customers that the false positive rates are pretty high, at least in some information types. And we shipped an updated engine in SharePoint Online, and we see a reduction of false positive, a dramatic reduction. By about 90% the reduction in false positives. This code is still not in the Scanner, but this is what we're actually doing in this quarter, and hopefully we'll have the same new engine that SharePoint Online uses right now in preview. We hope to ship this in Q1, and hopefully you will get much less false positives in this step. The next step is classification and labeling, and usually it comes with the fourth step, along with the fourth step, which is protection per MIP policy. Then once you're confident with your scan, you know what Scanner did, you reviewed what labels would have been applied if you ran in the enforcement mode, you can go and tell Scanner, okay, now go and switch and run and enforce my labels and protection on existing data. Then while here we are talking on non-intrusive network scan. When you go to these two steps, you do change files that you should be aware of what's going there. That's why our recommendation, run at least at the beginning the scanner and discovery mode, and only then switch to classification and labeling, and eventually protection.
Dennis, are you getting to the license requirements for the different scenarios later on, or
No, we don't, and it's a great question. Let's address it now. Then the licensing for scanner is a bit complicated, I admit. If you want to get it, that I will start from rationalization of licensing. What we are telling that any user that benefits from scanner should be licensed. Then and how it's translated to how many licenses and who should be licensed, in the action. Then ideally you can just buy, if you bought AIP licenses or M365 licenses for all users in your company, you should not worry about using scanner, because then you're covered. You will never need more licenses than users that you have in your tenant. But for example, if you for example bought, I know, 100 AIP or M365 licenses in the org of 1,000 users, then the question will be, can you use the scanner? You can, but you need to verify that file shares that scanner scans are accessible only by these 100 users. It means any user that creates or modifies a content in a scanned share should be licensed with AIP. And the last one will be, what license do I need? P1, P2, E3, E5. Then the difference is if you use just a discovery of built-in information types without labeling, without any automatic labeling, it's a P1. Just can go and tell, okay, go and search for credit cards and all other information types that are there. It's a P1 or E3. If you want to create your custom information types and search for them, or if you want to go and apply labels based on your rules, this is P2 or E5 license. Was it clear?
I think it was totally clear. Thank you for that.
Okay, demo. I will not run through entire installation demo, but I wanted to clarify a few important steps. When you install AIP Scanner, you first should create a profile in Azure Portal and configure it. You should create an Azure AD application and grant it all required rights, getting MIP policy, getting super users rights, for example, if you want a scanner to scan any protected content in the tenant. And you will need to run a few PowerShell commands to get the policy and install the scanner. Now I'll try to switch to the real environment. Then when you deploy a scanner, you will usually get your scanners connected here. For example, here I have one node connected. It's in idle mode. It means that it does nothing. It just connected and waits for instructions. The scanner will automatically join a cluster name based on your the PowerShell command that you executed, where you specify the cluster name. And this cluster name will usually be allocated content scan job and network scan job. Then, as I told, the first step that we recommend right now to do is to run a network scan job. For example, here you can see that I have a daily scan that runs at 1:43 p.m. UTC, and it scans this IP segment and goes in and search for file shares in this IP range. It's an optional step. If you know your network and you know exactly what you need to scan, you don't need to do this. You can just go directly to content scan job and define how your content is scanned. For example, you define here in the repositories what file shares should be scanned, and different settings here is this scan running in some scheduler? Are you searching for policy, for information types that are in your policy, or for anything? My recommendation, by the way, to run it at all mode, even if you just want to search for specific information types, and I will tell you why. When you run the scanner in search for all, it's running slower than the policy only. Like, it's not 100 times slower when you're searching for 100 built-in information types, but it will be slower. Like, it can be even twice slower than if you search for policy only. But what's important in this, that you do not need to rescan when you need to find something new. Think, for example, that your policy currently tells, I want to search for Swedish passports and credit cards. And you scanned all your petabytes of data and you search just for these two patterns. And tomorrow your company decides to expand to Finland, and now you need also to search for Finland's password, Finnish passwords. Then what you will need to do if you run in the policy only mode, you will need to go and rescan all your files again. But if you execute it in the all mode, it will just go and search in your scan results for Finnish passports, and you're done. Then that's why the recommendation is to go and scan for all, even if you know exactly what you need now, because you will not know what you will need in a month from now. And there is a bunch of other settings here, like either you enforce the policy or not, which means if you will just get results if you are off, or if we actually will go and label and encrypt files. And different other settings. For example, you can tell, okay, I don't want to inspect the content. I just want to go and put, for example, I know, a highly confidential NDA label on everything here. Then if you set it like this, all files in the repository will be applied, will apply a confidential NDA label. And because you check this one, enforce default table, we will also relabel existing files and will push this with this label on all files. This one is actually useful for customers that know that everything in specific place should be with the same label. Then this is, for example, if you tell, I know that in this folder everything should be secret, I will go and set up it in this way, and then everything will be secret there after the scanner scanned the repository. But let me go back to the regular flow. Then after you run the network scan, what will happen? You will get here under the repositories blade results of your network scan. Then here you will see all your repositories, both managed ones. For example, these two first ones are managed because they are part of some content scan jobs. And you have a bunch of other repositories. For example, here I can see that I have another repository which is accessible to everybody. The effective public access is read. It means that everybody can access this repository. Then what we will recommend you to do is to go and onboard this repository to some content scan job and go and scan this repository as well. Then now this repository will be added to my content scan job, and next time the job is running, we'll start inspecting the content there. And the results of this are landing here in data discovery. I assume that you are aware of another place that is named the Content Explorer. Then what we are doing right now, we are bringing all these AIP events to one unified portal, to the Content Explorer, to this one actually. I'm not sure if we already opened the private preview. It's going to be open next week, but we are starting very soon the private preview to bring all the data from AIP Analytics to M365 Content Explorer. Then if you are interested in private preview, tell Andres, or he will connect you to the right people on our side, and we will onboard you. Okay, let's go back to the presentation and talk a bit about the architecture. But before, Andres, do we have any questions on what I just presented now? Good. Okay. Then
I think that it's good to mention when it comes to comparing the AIP portal and the compliance portal. Today, when you apply labels by the scanner, you're using the labels from the AIP portal, right?
No. Okay, then this is a good question. Let me go back. Then if you use AIP Classic Scanner, which is, I don't really see too many customers in the version 1 or Classic Scanner, then you get everything from here. But when you use the Unified Labeling Scanner, while the configuration of how scanner works is here, the labels and the policies come from SCC. It means if you deploy the scanner version 2 point something, your labels will come from SCC. They will come from here.
So, but since here in Sweden we have a quite special public sector, which using different kind of hold your own key stuff, for instance, the ADRMS.
Yep.
And if you still want to use the ADRMS, you need the old one.
That's right. If you use ADRMS, you need to use the old one, and then you will get your labels from here. I can tell you that the Classic Scanner is a pretty old one. We didn't change it in last, let's say, 18 months. And I would recommend you to see if these public sector customers can move from HYOK to DKE. And if you are running scanner in a discovery mode rather than encryption or labeling mode, the version 2 scanner is much more accurate. Then you will get much better results if you can use the Unified Labeling Scanner. But if you cannot, yes, then you are right. Everything will come from here, and everything will end here.
So there is no known issues with the DK labels either from the new compliance portal?
No. You know, there are things that, for example, DKE currently not supporting Outlook. There are some things that are not supporting DKE, but I'm not aware of any issues with the DKE labels that scanner can apply or consume.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, a bit about architecture, and this is actually, it's great that you remind me that you have some customers that run classic scanner. Then another big difference between classic scanner and unified labeling scanner, that classic scanners cannot be grouped in clusters. You always have a one single node cluster when you use the classic scanner. When you run a unified labeling scanner, you can put a bunch of machines, put them in the same group, and tell all these 30 machines are going to scan all these 5,000 repositories, and they will distribute load between themselves. Then this is another thing that if you need to scan a lot of data and you have multiple nodes, in the classic scanner, it's much harder for admin to manage this because he is going to become a broker. What node will scan what repository? When you run the unified labeling scanner, the architecture is that all machines are grouped in one cluster or in number of clusters, and then they're just going and distribute load of scanning of these repositories. And this is another big advantage in the unified labeling scanner. Then you need to have a SQL database. In UL scanner, it's even more important because the SQL database is the orchestrator of job between the nodes. The cloud access is optional, although it's highly recommended. Because without the cloud access, you will not be able to get a centralized reporting, and you will not be able to apply MIP protection if you're not connected to the cloud. But again, if you're running, somebody runs ADRMS or HYOK, you can run completely offline. You don't need a cloud access for applying HYOK. We can scan file shares and NAS repositories or SharePoint on-prem. The NFS repositories are currently in private preview, and they're coming soon to public preview. Then we'll also support this very soon. This is the recommended configuration for a unified labeling scanner. The third line is most important. While you can have more than 10, 12 nodes clusters, and for example, MSIT, they're running, I think, 50 nodes cluster. Scaling out in more than 10 nodes is not linear. Like, I can tell that the cluster with 4 nodes scans almost twice faster than the cluster with 2 nodes, but it's not right for 10 nodes and 20 nodes. Then if you need to deploy more than 10 nodes, I would recommend to split them into 2 different clusters. It will be more efficient. Although it will require a bit from admin to invest in management, but you can go with more than 10 and 12 nodes if you are a lazy admin and you just don't mind to waste some resources. Scanning rates. It's a very hard question. I'm always asked about it by almost any customer, and we cannot provide any exact answer on what scanning rate you should get. And this is because it depends on so many aspects. It depends on your profile, on your network, on your scan type, and depends on file types, on file sizes, and even inside the same file types, different PDFs behave differently. Then there are some few high-level guidelines. For example, discovery usually is faster than labeling and protection. Inspection of protected files is slower because we need to decrypt them. Office files usually faster than PDFs, but I already found some Excel files that can be slower than PDF files. And CIF repositories are faster than SharePoint just because the protocol is more efficient. These are the samples of scan rate that we got in our labs. It doesn't mean that you will get exactly the same in your environment, but if you are getting something much slower than this, then you either have a problem in your deployment or you have a very weird file mix. I got one customer that scanned recursive PDFs and the entire share was with these PDFs. then it was much slower. But usually you should not get much slower rates than this. I can tell you that there are customers that got faster rates than this. Again, depends on so many things that we just cannot commit to some specific rate. Then a few tips. I recommend to review this article. I will be sharing the presentation with you. Then review the optimizing the performance of scanner before you plan your production deployment. As I told, I always recommend to run discovery for all known information types and not just specific ones. Use the network discovery to prioritize what should be scanned. If you have a lot of shares, then go first with the overexposed shares. Always put a scanner close to the repository, or at least ensure a high bandwidth and fast network. And this is because the content inspection is done on the scanner machine. It means that we copy a file from the repository to the scanner machine, we inspect it, and then if needed, we also label and write it back. Then that's why it's important to put scanner close to the repository. Looking forward, I will stop again and ask if there are more questions on architecture and best practices. Good. Okay. And when we are looking forward on what customers ask us to ship in Scanner, we identified 6 buckets. These are the 6 buckets: mitigation of risk, detection of data leak, of potential data leak, improve the accuracy, improve our admin experience to bring everything to one place, to support more types of repositories and to support more file types. Based on the research, the first 2 came, the mitigation and the data leakage as the most important. The accuracy was also very important, but it was a bit less prioritized than data leakage. And then came the unified admin experience. Then we're investing. That's why we were investing a lot in DLP in Scanner this year, and we will see it in a few minutes here. We're in private preview now. The improvement of accuracy was done in the engine, and as I told, we're going to adopt it in Q1. Again, it's relevant to customers that deploy unified labeling scanner. Customers that deploy the classic scanner will not get this accuracy improvement. Then this is what we shipped in Q2. The Q2 release was mainly about making this more optimized for SQL and resource consumption. We enabled you to limit some consumption of resources on the machines. We dealt with the data accuracy, provided you there is a good troubleshooting tool named the Scanner Diagnostic Tool now that can check your deployment and help you to identify what are the issues, and support for the archived files to avoid dehydration of archived files. In Q3 release, we shipped the network discovery feature that I just shown in my demo, the ability to find the file shares and prioritize them. And we also worked on changing the risk and logic. We found that in big deployments, this is what makes the scanning less efficient. And now it's your responsibility as admin to decide what you want to rescan and what you do not want to rescan. And this is what we are working on in this quarter and next year. We plan to GA the network discovery part. The DLP private preview started, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I will show what we ship now. And if you want to join a private preview, let me know. I will onboard your tenants. We work on bringing activity and Content Explorer support to AIP Scanner events, meaning all the AIP analytics to bring it to M365 portal. Private preview is about to start very soon, or maybe even start last week. We plan to open this to public in early next year. We are bringing NFS support in the version that we are going to release next week in Unified Labeling Scanner. Support for Azure China, I assume it's less important to you. We will bring a local scanner management. There was a demand from customers to enable them to manage scanner locally instead of managing it in the Azure UI. We will bring this option. It will not be a hybrid management. The customer will need to decide either he manages it centrally in Azure or just locally on the scanner machine. But we will enable customers to do this now locally. And adoption of the new classification engine, as I told, the one that was introduced to SharePoint Online at Ignite. Questions before I'm going to DLP stuff? Okay, when we talk in Microsoft about information protection and governance, there are 4 buckets where we invest. And Scanner plays very well in the know your data world and protect your data world, but it doesn't have any presence, or didn't have any presence in governance and data loss prevention. The main investment for us this year was investing in DLP for Scanner. Governance is on our radar. I assume we'll look into it next year. And what is DLP? I assume I don't need to remind all of you security experts here, data leak, data loss. What's more complicated is to understand what does it mean DLP for data at rest. Sorry. When we talk about data in use, it's very easy. You do something, this action leaks the data, and you want to prevent it. You send an email with sensitive data, you want to block it. Very easy, close to user, real time. The best DLP that user can get. The problem with this that usually it has the strength of this DLP solution is the strength of the endpoint, because it usually runs in the same context or at least on the same machine as user. Data in transit, a bit more complicated. The action happened, the mail was sent or the upload was done, and then you intercept it in the middle and you would like to stop it. Then the strength of this that you are running out of scope of the user environment, then it's much harder to attack you or to prevent the DLP from working. The problem is that you don't have user context. Then if you are blocking some email, user will, in the best scenario, will just get an NDR and understand that you did something. There is no user context there, or very limited user context. When we talk about data at rest, it's even more complicated to understand what's DLP for data at rest. Because in data at rest, nothing happens, right? Data is stored on the file share or in SharePoint and does nothing. Then if nothing happens, how the data leak can happen, you will ask. Then when we talk about DLP for data at rest, it's about detection of potential data leak. And potential, it means maybe it will happen, maybe already happened. We cannot change what happened in the past, but we can prevent this from happening again, or we can prevent it from happening, first time. And when we talk about DLP for data at rest, is a detection of oversharing, detection of secret files that are stored in a proper location. And then what we can do with this is reduce sharing, reduce permissions, set proper permissions, move the file from this place, quarantine the file, encrypt the file. Then the mitigations here, unlike with the data in use and transit, it's not preventing the action that happens now. It's about preventing the data leak event from being able to happen. Then this is the difference between DLP for in use in transit versus at rest. Then what we are doing now, this is what we have now in Microsoft. SharePoint Exchange Online DLP was there for ages. Endpoint DLP was GA'd earlier this year. The DLP for third parties and class integration was announced at Ignite in public preview, and very soon it's going to be in GA. Then what we are doing now is DLP for on-prem. And this is the mapping of different scenarios for different locations. And when we look into this, Microsoft DLP covers almost all big DLP buckets except the on-prem stuff. Then this is exactly what we did with the scanner earlier this year. Then this is our vision for what the on-prem DLP should do. Should have 3 steps: mapping, monitoring, and mitigation. Mapping includes go and find all overshared file shares, file repositories, or whatever. Go and tell me what the ICLs, what the permissions on all my repositories. And then I will proceed to monitoring of the content. I will see, okay, what happens with the files there? what's the correlation of sensitive files inside these overshared repositories? And ideally tell me who is actually using the files compared to the permissions that's set up there, and whether I can reduce the permissions. And then it feeds us in the third step with the mitigation, which can be go and reduce exposure, restrict access, change permissions, inherit permissions, remove the public access, or make this file private, or even quarantine and move this file completely from this location. Then this is our North Star, and this is what we are shipping now in private preview. The mapping is actually there for everybody already. The monitoring and mitigation, this is what we are previewing right now. What you can do, you can take the Office 365 or M365 DLP rule and implement it for file shares right now. And we added 4 actions here: quarantine, make private, remove public access, and inherit permissions. And all this is orchestrated using single DLP portal. Then I'm going to proceed to demo. In order to configure a DLP for on-prem, you are going to M365 Compliance Center, the same place where you configure the endpoint DLP, the SharePoint DLP, or MCAS DLP. Then let me go here into my on-prem DLP policy, and let's edit it. This is what I told that I saw some problem with the SDF. Let's see, with the Dogfood environment. Let me refresh again. See. If I cannot load it, I will just show it in the presentation mode. Oh, great. Okay, then what we did here, in addition to all existing workloads like Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, we added this one, on-premises scanner. In here, you can configure the paths that are included in this policy. And we added 4 different options to, 4 different actions. Come on. My network is really bad, huh? Sorry for this. Maybe I will just switch to my backup slides and I will show it from here. This is what happens when you run on Dogfood. Okay. Then we added, as I told, we added this new workload for on-premises scanner. And what we added here is actions. You can define a rule, a DLP rule for on-premises. It can be based on one of 4 options. It will be either information types, for example, credit card. It can be a label, it can be a custom property, or it can be a document file extension. And then you have a bunch of different actions that we support. The first section is making private, block everyone except the file owner. Then in this case, only the file owner will get access to the file. It can be inheriting permissions from the parent folder. For example, if somebody overshared a specific file, you can go and reset permissions from the parent folder. You can go and set up the quarantine folder here, or you can go and tell, okay, we'll remove public access to this file. Public access in on-prem world means we will go and remove everyone, authenticate users or domain users from accessing this file, and we will just grant, access to people or to groups that were explicitly granted rights on the file. Then all these all these settings are set up in the DLP rule, and then you just turn on the policy, and DLP is done. In order to enable DLP in Scanner, you still need to go and switch this, this toggle turn on to tell this content scan job will also inspect files for DLP. And okay, this one I think already is shown. Then where do you get your results once DLP is done? Then there are two places to get DLP results. The first one is audit log. Here you can get the raw, sorry, audit log. Here you can get the raw logs for all DLP activities. For example, this one, you can see what happened here for this file. An entire policy image. For example, here I see that I found the rule named quarantine private credit card was enforced, and this is what was found here, and you actually even can see the credit card itself that triggered the rule. And another place is the Activity Explorer. Then what you can get in Activity Explorer is different labeling and DLP activities. Then, for example, here you can see that I had 4 DLP rule events today. You can also go and spread, for example, check what happened since the beginning of the months. And then you can see that here I had 167 DLP matches, and here I had 15 enforces. You can always go to the specific file and get details here on the file itself. Let me go back to the presentation. We have another 15 minutes. I think I will skip here. There are few links here that I recommend you to read about Scanner, about network discovery, about the UL scanner versus classic scanner. And there are a bunch of other links here about MIP. Licensing pipe, when you ask, then here you have all the explanation of SKUs, what you get in different SKU, and what licenses you need for different capabilities. Join our Yammer, very live and efficient community. You can learn a lot, and the best thing about the community that people just help each other there and not only waiting for PG to answer. This is all from my side. Any question that we got related to Scanner or to AIP overall?
No, doesn't seem for that. Usually there comes question later on after the meeting and so on. And
feel free to share the questions after the meeting. I will try to address all of them.
Yeah. Absolutely. And thank you very much for this presentation. It was really appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Denis.
Hi, guys.
Okay. Let's give almost 8 minutes back. So thank you all for this, and have a good rest of the day. Hope to see you soon.